Look up from your telescope, take me on this journey home. I don't wanna wait no more.
What's good, y'all? It's your good sis Erica Vane back again with another amazing All American video. And in this video, we are breaking down episode 13 from season 1. Let's get into it. All right, the episode opens up on Beverly having a little bit of a celebration rally. They are going into playoffs and we are getting everybody hyped and all that jazz. But then moments later, we are in the locker room and Billy breaks the news of like, yeah, all I just said, that ain't the truth. We ain't ready for Logan High, y'all. And that becomes like the theme for this episode, them preparing to really be able to go into playoffs and to excel. At this moment, they have finished the regular season very, very well. They are, district champs, they're division champs. Spencer is division player of the year, and now we're going to playoffs so that they can start the journey to a state championship. However, because Billy doesn't feel like they are ready, he is making changes to the actual game plan, which includes benching Jordan. And Jordan definitely has a problem with this, pointing out the fact that GW says that he's doing it because he doesn't think that Jordan can handle the pressure. And he might be right. Over in Crenshaw, Coop is busy at work in her gang life, but this is the episode that we meet Preach for the first time because Coop is vying to get Sean's spot, and as a way to show Tyrone that she can actually handle it, he wants to tag along initially, but then Preach becomes the driver for her to go around and do the pickups within their organization. Oh, and also we meet Micah in this episode. We get to go to Grace's urban planning class where Micah is the student TA and assisting that class. So we actually get to meet a few new people in this episode, which is really, really dope. And I love being able to be in this class because this allows us to get a little bit more character development for Grace. We get to understand her more. She is not just super mom with great advice and perspective, but she is a really intellectual, dropped in black woman who cares deeply about her community and its future, and she wants to do something about its positive future. Back in Beverly Hills, Spencer is, aside from prepping with the team for the game, he is struggling with the teacher who was not letting him off the hook after he wrote a paper about Deion Sanders, or like he likes to call, prime time. The teacher thinks that Spencer gave a very surface level paper and did not put any effort or thought into it and didn't allow the paper to provide any insight for anybody reading it. While Billy and Jordan are reviewing footage prepping for Logan High, Billy gets up and Spencer sits down, and Spencer accidentally, or not accidentally, because he wanted to see the Crenshaw game, he thought this was just some present day Crenshaw footage, actually selects one of Billy and Corey's, which is Spencer's dad, old game footage, and then they get to see Spencer's dad like just performing beautifully. And I said that the paper winds up becoming a great analogy for a large plot point for Spencer in this episode, because it's almost like that. It's almost like Spencer is great, right? Like, he's a star player, he's a really great student. He definitely works hard on the field, so I'm not gonna say without trying, but the teacher is asking him to go a bit deeper, to not be so surface level, and to be a little bit more honest. That to me is very analogous with how he's kind of locked his feelings away about his father, and when confronted by this footage, it's almost like he needs to be able to get to a space where he can drop in and truly make peace with the absence of his father, truly make peace with the greatness of his father, with all of it, right? So that he can be able to process, heal, and move forward in a more powerful way within his life. Now, I know I just went like super meta with that, but that's what it said to me when I saw it. Now, the only thing is, Spencer processes this by struggling with the idea that Corey could have been his greatest influence, but also still been this huge absence. And we get greater context once we see JJ for a moment in this episode, and he was allowed to write his paper on The Rock. Meanwhile, Spencer cannot write his paper on Deion Sanders, and that's honestly because, which is freaking analogous for everyone in this dang on series, but that's because people expect more from Spencer than they do from other people. And in this case, I don't know if I would say the teacher is wrong. Other times, I definitely think that they be wanting too much out of Spencer. But in this case, Spencer, rewrite this dang on paper and let's get to the real. Some of the comedic relief for this episode comes early on with GW and Billy at the little family barbecue. GW is taunting him about these ribs. Billy's confronting him about Jordan and him trying to drive a wedge between them. GW, like, he's a necessary evil, y'all. He says the things that need to be said that nobody else really wants to say, and he makes me laugh. even though sometimes he's rude. Y'all, I have not been with Coop's plan from the beginning, but when she's trying to get people to turn on Tyrone, sis can be more obvious. Like, Tyrone is literally with you, girl. Why are you trying to do these extra extended conversations and all this other stuff? Do the dang on job till he trusts you, and then you could actually have a one-on-one conversation. Because this first drop off at this laundromat, I was just like, oh lord, this is touch and go. Coop ass is gonna get caught. Y'all remember how I said that GW was a necessary evil? I got to the part where he talks to Spencer. GW shouldn't be allowed to talk to Spencer, okay? He just shouldn't be allowed to talk to Spencer. Golly. Spencer winds up asking about his dad at the family barbecue. And of course, GW talks. He talks about what he feels like is the reason why Spencer's dad didn't make it to the league, which ties into their family, specifically his mom. He talks about how he's a really great player. And it just ultimately, like, while Spencer does need to know some of this stuff, it coming from GW and the way that it comes from, it doesn't land right. It doesn't have the proper context. Like, it's just like GW just tells him, right? And leaves him to process it on his own. And it almost like demoralizes Spencer a little bit in that moment. It's just like, when you watch it land on him, it's so hard to see. One of the things that Spencer says is, why would someone give up their NFL dreams for their family, but then walk out on their family? And GW knows, and he is not coy, or he is, oh my god, he's not subtle at all about the fact that he knows, but at least he knew not to tell Spencer that part. He definitely redirects him back to Grace. Now, child, it's the time of this episode. When I go back and rewatch this specifically to talk about this, y'all, this episode was kind of masterful, because even them integrating the whole plot point about this paper that Spencer has to rewrite, and then seeding it as well with Olivia, who also has this class, and then we get the little moments where Laura's like, oh, well, talking to Jordan and Olivia, like, who you guys write a paper on? Jordan's like, I don't got the class, and Olivia's like, I got the class, but walks off. So then you get the little bits of tension there with them. This is so masterfully done. But after Spencer talks to GW, we cut back to Crenshaw, where Grace is at home talking with Micah, because he invited her to coffee to help her flesh out her project, and ultimately they ended up back at her house. And then y'all, Spencer walks in on this with a battery in his back from GW, got questions about his dad, and then walks in and see Grace with this man, which is not something that they regularly see. So that was already started landing like, what the hell is going on here? And he got all these daggone questions. One thing that I really, really love, y'all, even when Spencer is pushing the limits, right? Like, even when he is angry in his bag and he is like, I want answers, answer my question, yada, 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 he still keeps it respectful. Like, Grace will tell him, I said what I said, and then he'll be like, all right. Meanwhile, over in Beverly Hills and them Baker kids, they run amok. They do what they want. They don't care what you said. A lot of these dang on kids, they do whatever they want. Layla throw tantrums. Well, hers are definitely like warranted because her little absentee daddy. But these, I loved it. So we have a moment where, of course, Spencer walks in, gets all puffed up in the chest, and is like, going off, and Grace is like, we not doing this now. You embarrass me. I'm not talking about this. You heard what I said. Go ahead now. And Spencer don't have no choice but to go ahead. One of these really strong character development moments for Spencer happens in this episode with Layla when he comes back after confronting his mom, or trying to confront his mom. He goes back to Layla's house, and we see him apologize to Layla for leaving after she refused to show him her paper because she wrote about her mom, and it's a little uncomfortable for her. She was very vulnerable and, honest with that. And in his apology, he's like, I shouldn't assume that I could just read it. Like, it's about your mom. I completely understand, and I shouldn't have left that way. And he reiterates, he says, I told you I'm a work in progress. Honestly, I really feel like this relationship helped Spencer really grow up, because while he was being exposed to a lot of the same things in regular life, him having to confront his jealousy and his anger and his short temper and things like that within the confines of his relationship with Layla gave him a tangible thing to like actually see immediate results from. So when she confronted him about the jealousy and the anger, and when he was assuming genuine things about Asher, and him having to realize that in that moment within the confines of the relationship. And then he gets like, okay, you behave like this, I get this result. I behave like that, I get this different result. That really helps him understand, like, okay, you do it in the relationship, but then also he's able to apply it in life. And we also see it in this episode too, in reference to him coming back and making this apology and coming to this realization, but also coming to a realization around his mom, and how he came at her in that moment, and how he had all this expectations of her giving these answers and doing X, Y, and Z. So I just thought that this was so beautiful, especially because the dialogue has him actually register and be accountable to it while he's giving this apology. And he gets the immediate result of like what this accountability and honesty looks like, because then Layla invites him into this music room in the house so he can learn a little bit more about her, and he gets to see some of the things about her mom that she loves so much. Now, he finds this journal or songbook of her mother's, which he reads, and unbeknownst to him, kind of like makes her uncomfortable again. But for the purposes of like, he just apologized for overstepping and having these expectations on her. He definitely understood the result of being able to be patient and give people space. And honestly, this part is used to really just help Spencer make peace with the fact that like he might have known his dad or gotten time to really spend a ton of time with him, but he can still benefit from a lot of his greatness, and he can still be proud of his father's greatness while also still having feelings of his absence, because Layla shows him like, okay, these are all the things of my mom, and even though she's not here, I can still be very proud of all of her accomplishments. And she reaffirms like, you now know this certain thing about your dad, and you can be glad that you know this about him the same way that I'm glad that I know certain things about my mom. I forgot, it wasn't his mom's songbook, it was actually Layla's little journal songbook. That was a little tense quick moment. When Grace comes to finish the conversation with Spencer at the baker's house, it's a very endearing moment between them. They have so many endearing, honest moments, which I love. Like, I totally got it. When I first watched it, I was like, yo, okay, yeah, you don't have to relive your most painful moments. She does tell Spencer, like, he left and it was between me and him, but she's being so secretive about it, and Spencer really feels like he needs to know why his father left. And I don't think that that's an invalid question for him to ask. When I first watched this, I was like, okay, I get what she's saying. But I'm like, no, girl, you actually do owe him an explanation. His father is not here. Like, we know that you have stepped up to be mom and dad, and, this pushes you to step up and all that kind of stuff. Okay, cute. That's cool, girl. But if you know why his father left, and you're just simply not telling him because it's going to hurt your feelings, but you know something between y'all, it's kind of selfish, Miss Gracie. It's a little selfish, because Spencer kind of needs this answer or this information for closure. And rewatching that scene is just like, she's refusing to tell him, and I'm just like, girl, this is part of the problem, which is what we see play out, of course. But like, in the moment, it's like, this is part of the problem. Like, you can be honest with Spencer. Y'all are very honest with each other. Why can't you go there and tell this boy this one thing? Okay, y'all, there's a moment in this episode where okay, so Laura walks in, sits down, and looks at Olivia, and Olivia's like, what? Laura responds, nothing, am I bugging you? And Olivia's like, no, but then immediately starts to like get unsettled and get up, like, okay, I gotta go get ready for school. And before she can fully get up, Laura stops her and asks, how are you doing? But even just watching these few seconds, I'm just like, bruh, this is what you asked for. And I don't think I caught this initially, but now that I'm like going back and paying more attention. Well, okay, so there's two things happening here. Part of it for me is like, okay, but are you doing this because you want to know who her greatest influence is from this essay? Because that is definitely a seed that was planted earlier on, and it seems like you're in your head about it, Laura, in reference to, oh, well, who is Olivia going to say, because we've all let her down. So I would love to know what she's actually thinking. But another part is, it does feel genuine in that she's checking on her, but Olivia is very standoffish, and she gets defensive because she's like, well, I'm not using again. And I get that this is kind of like normal behavior, because she doesn't want to be assumed to be wrong or to be using again, and she's really trying to navigate the waters of what her mom showing up for her looks like. But with her being so defensive, I was like, Olivia, let this lady show up for you. Like, have y'all's moments. You need these. And I know that Olivia has had to navigate this space on her own, or navigate her life on her own, with people just letting her down. But at some point, she's going to have to meet them halfway and allow people to love on her and be less confrontational about like why, basically her energy felt like, why are you here? What do you want? What are you looking at me for? And I want her to be able to be comfortable to let people love her. At least in season 1, that's what I would have wanted. And it's crazy because when you watch it, the following scene is a scene with Jordan and Olivia walking in school. Jordan's going off because my dad won't let me start, blah, 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 blah. He really needs to. Why did he help me out if he was going to bench me? Lord have mercy. And this is where he admits that Billy helped him with the drug test. And I make that note because Olivia is literally saying to him, like, remember our new Baker family pact to support each other? Like, we have to show up for each other. And it's just like, girl, Laura just tried to show up for you when you were giving her this kind of like, girl, what you want energy. But maybe her actually doing that made Olivia remember the pact and soften a little bit. So maybe that's the energy that she carried with Jordan. Oh, Lord Jesus, fix it. Fix it, Jesus. Please fix it. We go to the game, y'all. Jordan has his little speech beforehand. Daddy, let me play. I'm ready. You need to trust me. Blah, 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 blah. We get to the game and Spencer's doing wonderful as usual, showing up and showing out until we have a timeout and he looks up into the stands and who is there? Who is that, Harpo? Some black man. But you can put 2 and 2 together with how he's staring at Spencer, and then when Billy looks up and how he's looking at Billy, that's Spencer's daddy. And now Spencer's completely thrown off. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it, please, Jesus. Now, they have moments in this game. Spencer's now off his game. They put Jordan in, and he continues to do what people expect him to do, fold under the pressure, keep getting sacks, because even though he threw a fit, Daddy, I'm ready, you are clearly not ready. But that is quickly turned around because Jordan gets out of his head, and he decides to really prove that he has been putting in the work, prove that he can do this, prove that GW has been putting in the work with him. And while they win this game and Jordan gets to have this whole moment of like, who's next, because he heard from GW that that's what Billy used to do, all we're focused on is Spencer and what's going to happen. He's looking for his dad after the game. His dad is nowhere to be found. It's the tension and the stress and the drama for me. The last 15 minutes of this episode is just, I felt like I was not breathing watching, like, oh God, how is this about to go? Before we actually see Spencer's dad reappear, we get a conversation with GW and Billy, and Billy puts 2 and 2 together really quick. Corey came to the game. Yes. He realizes that GW has something to do with it, and he's frazzled. Spencer's frazzled. Oh, y'all, the last few minutes of this episode is so beautiful, but still like heart-wrenching, because we get the voiceover of Spencer reading his greatest influence essay, and he's talking about how it's a simple question, but it's a very complicated answer because, you are evolving every day. We hear him talk about people coming into his life and changing his whole perspective and outlook on life. And we get that while we see Layla in the music room and then writing in her journal. From there, we go to Laura and Olivia. She shares her paper with Laura, and come to find out her greatest influence is uphill because of all that she had went through. And Spencer has the voiceover during this moment of saying, like, the question isn't who influenced you, but what? We hear Spencer say, people come and go from our lives. It's impossible to choose one person that's influenced you the most because so many people have influenced you and taught you a lot. Things like loyalty. And we get to see Coop and Preach and Crenshaw. And then we get to the end of his paper where he says the greatest influence has to be his father's absence. If he would have never left, he would have never left this hole for so many people to fill, and he wouldn't wind up the person that he is today. And then we get Spencer walking in and seeing Corey in the house. Bruh. If I was Spencer in that moment, I would have started flipping tables. Like, what are you doing here, sir? Now, there's also a beat when we saw Coop and Preach and Crenshaw. We get a moment where they actually have dialogue, and Coop is like, oh, so what did you do in the pen? Preach is like, read books on Greek mythology. And he gives her the example of the story of the Trojan horse. And she's like, well, I never read that. And it's literally what Coop is doing right now, or attempting to do. She's attempting to be this Trojan horse, infiltrating Tyrone's gang so that she can get into the walls, get people's defenses down, and get them to turn on him. And I just thought that that was just so beautifully done and integrated into the show. It's so many layers to this dang on show. So I definitely had to go back and mention that. So we get a very clear understanding of who Preach is, because even after he says that, he reminds Coop as she gets out, the Greeks, they weren't as smart as they thought that they were. I'm like, what? Is he on to her? Is he going to turn her in? Is he going to like what is going on? So we definitely get that moment. But I want to end this video talking about Spencer walking in and seeing his dad. And y'all, for the last 12 episodes, at least, but for the last 8 years, Spencer has been struggling with his dad not being in the home. Can you imagine what is going through his mind when he walks into his house and then magically his father is there? It's almost as easy as flipping a switch. Like, you could have been here this entire time and you just weren't. Oh, this was such an emotional episode, but so beautifully well done. That is my episode 13 breakdown. If you're new here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and join the tribe. I'm breaking down seasons 1 and 2 of All American as we prep for season 4, which will be coming on October 25th. It's your good sis Erica Bain. Again, hit the subscribe button, join the tribe, because you made it all the way to the end and I know that you liked it. Also, drop down in the comment section and let me know what you thought about this episode. There was so much going on. What was your favorite thing? What was the most notable thing? What's the thing that you caught going back and rewatching if you've seen this before, but you're just now rewatching along with me as I do these breakdowns? Tell me all that and more in the comment section down below. I have my season 1 playlist link for you right now on screen, as well as in the description box. And if you want to see any of my videos about season 3, I have that playlist on screen for you as well. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.